Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we have an all new beauty battle. So I feel like I've been teasing this video for quite a while, but I've really been taking notes and trying my best to decide on all of the comparisons between these different groups of products. Now, I do test and try all of the new makeup releases, and I do end up loving a lot of products, but the average person is not purchasing every single thing that I love. So I do like to come back with these videos and compare products that had similar properties or were very similar overall and kind of share my thoughts if I had to choose between one of them. So let's hop right into it. We are going to start with an easy one. I have the Maybelline Super Fluff Brow Mousse, and I'm putting that against the ABH Volumizing Brow Gel. Now I have the Maybelline in Soft Brown and I have the ABH in Auburn. So I am always on the lookout for the best Auburn brow products, and they're surprisingly hard to find, but the Maybelline I chose in Soft Brown because their shade range isn't the best, but it is a drugstore product, so it is very affordable. The applicator is a little bit large, but it's nothing too excessive. I can still make it work with my brows. I do have naturally fuller looking brows, but some applicators are definitely way out there. This one isn't terrible, but it is on the slightly large side, so if you do have smaller brows, you might have a difficulty with this one. This also does an amazing job of actually filling in the brows, making them look so much more full, while also setting them and holding them in place. So it's kind of a one and done kind of deal. You don't need to fill in your brows and then lock them in place. That is something I really enjoy about this. Now, the ABH Volumizing Brow Gel, this one has a bit more of a unique applicator. This one is meant to hold a lot of product and apply it on one side, while the other side of the brush is meant to comb everything through. So I love the packaging design of this, and this shade of this Auburn brow gel is fantastic. It is so good. It is the perfect Auburn of my dreams. The problem with this is that it is so unbelievably messy. No matter what I do, it just makes a huge mess around my brows. The first time I used this, I was planning to film a video, and I ended up scrapping that video afterward because I saw how imbalanced my brows were. So then I started trying to apply this first before I did the rest of my makeup, and there was still such a mess, and I don't understand. So I just really didn't love this, and I also found it didn't necessarily lock my brows in place as well as the Maybelline. And given that this is ABH, it's also a lot more expensive than the Maybelline. So without a shadow of a doubt, I highly recommend the Maybelline over the ABH. I will admit the Maybelline shade range isn't where I'd like it to be yet. Maybe they'll expand on that. Next, we have a comparison that I have been asked about a couple of times. We have the Givenchy Prism Libre Glow Serum Foundation and the Dior Hydra Nude Foundation. I have thoroughly tested both of these and really truly loved both of them. Now, the Givenchy is going to be the more glowy option. It is also a bit of a thinner formula. It's a little bit more lightweight. It is very long wearing, and it does give a gorgeous medium coverage. And even though I said it's glowy, it doesn't give a super metallic glow. It gives more of that very hydrated skin glow, like you've just got some really good skincare going on. And I think that is beautiful. It's very reminiscent of the glow I get from my NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. I'm not comparing this to the NARS today, but I am still working on that comparison, so that will be a future video. But one thing I will say about the Givenchy is the pump is just a plastic, and so is the lid. It doesn't feel as luxurious. The bottle is a glass bottle, but the packaging doesn't feel as luxurious. But the product itself looks so fantastic on the skin. I have used this non-stop since I tried this one out for the first time. The only thing I don't like about this is the fragrance. It does have a floral fragrance, and I just don't find it that pleasant. Another thing about the Givenchy that throws me off initially is when I first put it on my face, it does have a slight tack to it. It's nothing excessive. It's one of those that you could easily take down with a powder, but just keep in mind it does sort of have that slight tackiness to it, so your hair might stick to your face, but that tackiness does go away and it just kind of settles beautifully on the skin and maintains that glow. I do also have the shade 0.5C. I could probably go a little bit deeper with this one, but the shade overall is okay. On the other side, we have the Dior Hydra Nude Foundation. I have this one in 0N. This is a perfect shade match for me. So these are actually about the exact same price point, and you do get the same amount of product in each. I would say this has a slight glow to it, but it's so slight. It's really just more of a satin. It's a very, very skin-like finish that you get from this. This looks very natural on the skin. This is also a medium coverage, but I do think it has more coverage than the Givenchy. The thing I love about this is that I don't actually need to set this one with powder if I don't want to. Now, I do have dry skin and I do live in a cold climate. We are going into the spring, so it is warming up beautifully, but I do have very dry skin, and in the winter months, my skin is just parched no matter what I do. So I love a product like this where I can get the coverage that I want, but I don't actually have to add powder if I don't want to, because that is a very quick way to make me look dry. So I love that I don't have to do that with this. I think this is such a beautiful foundation. This is also very long wearing, and I just love the skin-like finish that this gives. This also has a glass bottle. I will say the lid on this one feels so much more thick and durable. The pump also feels a lot more expensive. The Dior also has a fragrance, but the fragrance from the Dior is much more of a clean, fresh scent, whereas the Givenchy is very floral. And I have been debating between these two for weeks on which one I like best, and at some points I thought for sure it was the Dior, and then I thought for sure it was the Givenchy. This morning I thought I was leaning toward the Givenchy, but as I'm kind of hearing all of my reasoning, I think I'm gonna go with the Dior. I love how juicy and hydrated the Givenchy makes my skin look. I love how it sits on my skin. It's just absolutely perfect. The Dior though, I like that it gives just a little bit more coverage, and I like that I don't have to powder if I don't want to. After many weeks of debate, I am going to give the win on this one to the Dior. The next one is another one I've been working on, but I haven't really shared that I've been working on it. I have a battle between the Givenchy Prism Libre powders. Both of these are in shade 2, Satin Blanc. Over on this side, I have the original powder. Now, I've said before, the original was my absolute #1 top favorite powder of all time, and that is coming from a dry skin type. I just loved everything about this. This is blurring, it's mattifying, it never looks heavy on the skin, it never breaks up my foundation, my concealer, and it just looks so effortlessly beautiful, and it really just doesn't add any weight to the skin. It is just the absolute most perfect powder. But they did reformulate this, and the reformulation was sometime last year, and people were absolutely furious because our precious powder was ruined. I heard all of the really, really awful reviews initially, and then I heard some say that it wasn't too bad. So finally, I decided to take matters into my own hands and see for myself. Now I have a whole note card full of notes of the differences between these two powders because I didn't want to forget anything. So both of these powders are made in Italy. The first thing I noticed that was different is the new powder has less product. The compacts and components are the exact same size and shape, but the original has 1 gram of product. The new one has 0.75 grams of product, so you're getting a quarter less product than the original. Now, the new powder still melts into the skin beautifully. It's still smoothing, it's still blurring. It's not powdery or heavy, but it isn't truly matte. It definitely does have a radiance to it, and if you look very closely, you can see sort of micro shimmers in the powder. If you brush this on with a brush, I do think those microparticles are going to be much more obvious. I tend to pack this on with a sponge right in my under eyes, and if I look very, very close, I can see some of those micro shimmers, and I do think that is just to add the radiance. But from a distance or within a healthy personal space range, you're not going to see the glitters under my eyes. And I mean, to be completely fair, I'm normally wearing a shimmery eyeshadow anyway, so I normally have glitter all over my face. That's just the way it is for me. But between the two, I 100% do prefer the OG powder. I will continue to use this and love this and savor it as long as I can because I do love it so much. But I don't think the new powder is bad, and I still really like it. So while I don't like this as much as the original powder, I don't dislike it, and I still like it a lot more than a lot of the other powders that I actually do have in my collection. So I think that is saying something. I think the problem here, and there's a couple problems. I think the first thing was that they completely discontinued this one that was so well loved and then replaced it with this. This is quite obviously a matte powder. This is obviously a radiant powder. So I think had they either let these two powders coexist, it would have been fine. Or if they marketed this one as a radiant setting powder, I think it would have been fine. And I think there would have been a lot less upset. There would have been upset regardless because they got rid of the first formula, but I think had the marketing been different, and I do think that if they said from the jump that it's going to be more of a radiant setting powder, I think it would have gone over so much better because that's what it is. It is going to mattify and blur to a degree, but it's also going to leave a soft radiance to the areas that you powder, but it's not going to be glowy, highlightery. It's just going to have that sort of light reflecting effect, like the NARS light reflecting foundation, like the Givenchy. They're not glittery, highlighter, Tin Man type products, but they are going to leave a soft radiance. And this does that. So I do think this is lovely. I don't think someone with oily skin is going to like this, but I do think if you have dry skin and you want to powder your foundation or your concealer, but you also don't want to look dry and parched, I do think this is a fantastic option. It's still a really great powder. Is it the first formula? No. But is it a bad product? Also no. I think it was just overall marketed wrong, and I think that this is going to be more geared towards certain skin types. Overall, I prefer the original formula. That is my conclusion, but I don't hate the new one. Next, we have a blush comparison. I have the YSL Make Me Blush Bold Blurring Blushes versus the REM Beauty Satin Matte Blushes. Now, the YSL is obviously very expensive. The packaging is absolutely gorgeous. It's very heavy. It's very luxurious. And it's really, really beautiful. These are pigmented, but they are so incredibly blurring on the skin. Today I'm actually wearing the new one from Tower 28, and it might even be more blurring than the YSL. Now the YSL does have some matte shades, they have some shimmer shades, and they have some more satins. So far, I've only tried the mattes. I did just purchase one of the satins. I just haven't had a chance to try it yet. But this just sits on the skin and it looks so beautiful and airbrushed. I think it's absolutely stunning. So the one I pulled for this video is Rose Haze. I also have shade 44 and shade 37. This is shade 6. And I love this so much. This is one that I've used so much that I'm actually starting to lose my embossment on the product. And I only got these on Christmas Eve. Now, the REM Beauty blushes, the packaging, it's cute, but it is going to be a little bit more awkward to store just because it's all kind of rounded. So that's one thing. It definitely doesn't look or feel as expensive. I do like that you have this little window so you can see what shade you're reaching for. But this formula is very, very similar to the YSL. These are also very pigmented. They're very blurring. All of the REM Beauty shades are matte. They both feel incredibly similar. If you swatch them back to back, they're both incredibly buttery and smooth. They feel identical when you swatch them. When you put them on the cheeks, they also have a very, very similar application. They both look just so beautiful and airbrushed on the skin. I think they're both absolutely stunning. They both have pretty extensive shade ranges. I will say YSL kind of has some different shades depending which country you're in, which I found to be very strange. REM Beauty has a great shade range in general. Obviously, the REM Beauty is going to be a lot more affordable. So deciding between these two is actually hurting me because I love them so much. I do think I'll give it to the YSL just because the packaging is so unreal stunning. But if you've been curious about the YSL and you really don't want to spend this much on a blush, which fair, totally fair, grab one from REM because this formula is nearly identical and these are just as beautiful. The only thing I like less is the packaging, but they're both absolutely stunning and they're so similar. For my personal preferences, I'm going with YSL just because the packaging. That's literally it. If it was just the formula and the packaging on these weren't very luxurious, I would 100% go for the REM. The last comparison is between the Rare Beauty Liquid Contour or the Say Dew Bronze. Now, The Rare Beauty and the Say are both in pretty comparable price points. I think the Rare Beauty is $4 more. The Rare Beauty, you get 14 ml of product. With the Say, you get 12. Rare Beauty has 8 shades, Say has 6. So they're very comparable in price point. They're very comparable in shade range. You do save a little bit with the Say, but you also get less product. They both have a ton of product, and it's probably very unlikely that any of us will ever use up a whole one of either of these. So maybe the Say is the better way to go. Both of these are quite pigmented, but they are also on the more sheer side. So they're not going to be too intense. If you do get too much, it's very, very easy to blend them out. But you can blend them out without blending them away, which is also really nice. And if you need to build these, you can. Both of these products are very buildable and blendable, but don't just disappear when you blend them. So they're both very, very beautiful products. They're very easy to work with. I would say the Rare Beauty feels a little bit more like a liquid. The Say has a bit more of a gel consistency to it, but overall they're very, very similar on the skin. Now in the Rare Beauty, I have the shade Gentle. In the Say, I have the shade Sand. These are both the lightest shades in their range. Now, the Rare Beauty is a liquid contour, so it's meant to be more cool toned, and the Say is a dew bronze. This is meant to be a little bit warmer. So they are different products, but they do remind me a lot of each other. Even though the shade Gentle is a contour, I can also use it as a bronzer. So I thought it was still appropriate to compare the two. If you are looking for more cool tone shades, the Rare Beauty is definitely a really great way to go. If you are just looking for a bronze, the Say is obviously the way to go. But either way, you can't lose with either one of these products. I love the consistency of both of these. I love the formula of both of these. I would say I would probably go with the Rare Beauty because I do love something that has a bit more of a reddish undertone to it, just for my very fair skin. So it really comes down to personal preferences. For me, I prefer the Rare Beauty because even though it is a contour, it works as a bronzer for me just because it does have that slight reddish undertone. But the Say is a fantastic option, especially if you are looking for something that is more warm. So that is it. Those are the products I have been actively working and comparing recently. If I was looking down a lot in this video, I apologize. I was looking at my notes. But let me know down below all of your thoughts. I love hearing from you guys so much. Are there any other comparisons you would like to see in a future beauty battle video? Leave those down below because I can definitely incorporate them. But thank you so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!